As you can see, I have 3 countertop ice makers here, and there's a reason for that. 2 reasons actually. Reason number 1 is because my freezer does not have a built-in ice machine. And that leads me to reason 2, I'm okay with that because I don't really like the shape that the typical ice maker from the freezers comes out. It's kind of like that crescent moon looking thing. I think they're a little too big because reason 2 is much against the advice of any dentist anywhere. I like to chew on ice. So I like a smaller ice cube, and these 3 models do make smaller ice cubes. Now, why do I have 3? Well, I started with this one. This one makes this was like maybe I think $99, somewhere around there. It's kind of an entry-level one. And I'll get into it a little bit more as this video goes on, but this shape is kind of like a little Pac-Man ghost. It looks like that. I liked it. And this one worked really well, but as time went on, I kind of wanted to get into the nugget ice, that kind of very soft, chewable kind that is probably okay for your teeth, or at least not as bad as these big, giant ice cubes. Anyway, that's when I got into these. Now, why do I have 2 of these? Well, unfortunately, I had this one for 1.5 years, and it ended up breaking. So I got this one as a gift, but that's okay, because that enables me to now kind of take this one apart and show you how ice cubes are made, because these are very similar in how the nugget ice is made. This one's a little bit different, which is, again, cool. I get to show you kind of how these are made. So the good news is when something breaks, I kind of have nothing to lose when I take this apart. So I think I know the part that broke, but that's what this video is about today. Countertop ice makers and how they work and how they get the shape of their ice cube. So most ice makers pretty much do one thing, obviously, and that's make ice. Some have a few features such as cleaning and a few other things, but really this is basically your basic entry-level ice maker for your countertop. It does basically 2 different ice cube sizes, a small and a large, and I think that's done by the amount of time that the freezing is going on, which I'll show you in a moment. The only other option this one has is if it's full, it has a sensor, it'll tell you and it'll stop making ice. And it'll also tell you if the water is out and it will stop making ice as well. But other than that, it's pretty much on and off and smaller, large ice cubes. Now, this one works, where it gets its water is you have to put it in, there's a little basket in here, and the water actually goes in the bottom here that you manually have to put in. So I'm going to do that now. There's a fill line there. As long as you're not above that, you're okay, because when you put this basket in, as the water comes up, you obviously don't want it to float your ice cubes. You want it right below it. So there's a fill line in there for that. Anyway, this one goes back in here. This one works like this. The water gets sucked in through the bottom. It kind of comes up through the back. And this little thing right here basically is a tray where the water comes in. And these little metal prongs is the actual part that gets cold. The tray lifts up, the water fills in this where the prongs are, and it freezes on that. When it's done, it drops that back, all the water that was in there dumps, and the little ice cubes are hanging on the prongs. Now, this is the only part that I'm not really sure how it actually gets the ice cube off of here because it's frozen on there. I think there's somehow a shot of heat that comes through here, whether it's through electricity or the water, I'm not sure. But either way, when it dumps, all the ice cubes release, they fall into the tray, and then it scoops it out kind of into this basket again, and to repeat the cycle over and over again. That's how this one makes ice. Okay, so I've got this one taken apart now to the point where I can at least have it exposed while I'm making some ice. And this one actually acts a little bit differently. The water normally would sit on top here, but it also gets sucked down into this bottom part here. So even if I don't have water coming from the top, I can fill this up, and there is a little vacuum that'll suck the water into here. What it does is essentially it comes up through here, and there's, I guess, a water dispenser that it pumps it into here. And in here, there is a shaft with basically an auger. That's the part that actually gets chilled. And what it does is it rotates this lever on top, which then kind of cuts the ices into little nuggets as they kind of freeze and come out, and then they slide down the chute. That's actually the part that broke. It's just a little L bracket that looks like it was, I guess, welded on here, but the weld broke. So unfortunately, even though this broke, and this was not necessarily a cheap machine either, I'm going to bring up the Opal, the nicer version, and show you that one working. Obviously, the cover's going to be on and look nice, but it's really essentially doing the same thing. It's got the auger, comes up, nuggets come down the chute. So let me get that set up and show you how that works. All right, so this is the GE Profile Opal Nugget Ice Maker. And so this is the latest one I have. Right now it is my favorite for a couple of reasons. One, it works. But and honestly though, I like this one because it has a couple features that the other Nugget Ice Maker didn't have. Wi-Fi, which you might think, well, that's kind of silly for an ice maker, but it is nice if I'm kind of before I come home, I can turn the ice maker on or schedule it to make some ice before I get home. That's kind of cool. But it has some of the other typical features that the other Nugget Ice Maker had. This one actually has the extra reservoir I got, so I can put more water in here. If I didn't have this, the water would go inside here in the bottom. This would come out and would come in the bottom there. I could put it in there. But let's fire this up and I'll show you how this one actually functions nicely making nugget ice. So what I think is happening here is that the water's coming through, getting sucked into the bottom here, and you see that trickle. What I think it's actually doing is going through that chamber that chills it to actually chill the water first, and then it drops down below, so that I think the idea being that it will freeze faster with chilled water. So this runs for about maybe, I don't know, 4 minutes, chilling it, which is a pretty clever idea. Once the water's done trickling through, pretty much just starts to make ice then, and it comes out in about maybe 5 or 6 minutes. You start getting little ice, and then it builds up over time, of course. Might take about 2 hours to fill this entire bucket, but that's pretty much how this one works.
So there's not much more for me to show you about how the ice is made in this one, since it generally makes it the same way as the Frigidaire. But now you know how a few common ice makers form the shapes of their ice and how they generally work to produce it. Now, I didn't set out to do an ice maker shootout in this video, so I'm not really going to give any reviews, but I think you could tell my favorite one is that GE Opal machine for some obvious reasons. One thing I will say though is that these are not high-speed machines, so you won't be able to set it up at a party and have it make like fresh ice on demand all night while your guests are there, but these machines are great for general home use. Either way, if you enjoy ice from one of these countertop machines, or if you just want to flex on your friends because you can serve nugget ice and they can't, then a countertop ice maker should work quite well for you. If you like what you saw, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching.